people like Geoff McCoy and Reno Avalera and Dick Brewer or others. What personal influence would you say those guys had on you?
Well, there was a lot of people that had influences on me. Geoff was one of the first. I used to ride his boards when I was young, so I guess when I was about 13, 14, and 15. And I did a lot of early travelling with Geoff. The first 2 trips to Hawaii with Geoff, I went with him and a bunch of guys, and he sort of took care of me. And I used to spend all the school holidays in Sydney with Geoff, basically surfing with him at Narrabeen in the morning and the afternoon, and hanging out at his surfboard factory during the day, like watching him shape, watching the guys glass and sand and finish coat and polish. So my interest in, I guess, being a surfboard shaper and actually surfboard production stemmed from those times that I spent, basically spending the school holidays with Geoff.
What influence do you feel McCoy had on surfboard design and surfing in general during that era?
Well, Geoff had a really big influence. He was, I'm sure Simon Anderson would be the first to admit that he got the idea of the narrower nose on the thruster design from Geoff's laser zap idea, and it was really the forerunner to the thruster. With the laser zap, Geoff invented a board with a wider tail and a very narrow nose. Theory being that you stood on the tail of the board working from the tail, and with a narrower nose you didn't have a lot of board in front of you, so it was a lot easier to throw around. So I think the inspiration for Simon's thruster actually came a lot from Geoff's designs and also from Geoff's laser zap design.
And would you say you probably put the emphasis on performance with your twin fin during that era? Everyone came from single fins and you jumped on board with the 20?
Well, my first introduction to twin fins was actually on a McCoy twin fin. I started out riding like single fin McCoys. They were a double-ended shape, around nose and around tail. And when the twin fin thing first hit, Geoff was one of the first shapers in Australia to actually start making twin fins. So the first twin fin experiences and the spark for the twin fin actually initially came from riding McCoy twin fins.
Your rivalry with Shane Horan, both of you kind of had your roots there with McCoy. Was that a friendly rivalry during the time? And how do you feel that rivalry affected surfing as a whole?
Well, I guess the rivalry with Shane was we were both sort of vying for the world title. I was riding a twin fin, he was riding a single fin, we were riding different types of equipment. We were both, possessed of wanting to win, wanting to beat each other, wanting to win events and wanting to win world titles. I guess the only thing I can compare it to now is the rivalry between Andy Irons and Kelly Slater. We got on great out of the water, but when it came to actually surfing competition, we were prepared to paddle over the top of each other and kill each other. I don't run into Shane very often these days. I actually saw him about 8 months ago on the Gold Coast during the Quicksilver Pro. We were doing something in net commentary together. But it's great to see Shane doing well. He's got a really successful surf school business and sort of early heads on the Gold Coast. And it's sort of funny how people who were rivals during the competitive days end up being sort of friends later on in life.
Now that you're doing twin fins again, do you feel they will have a similar impact as they had the first time, now that you're working with Loss, one of the better surfboard builders in the country?
I think the thing is in this era that all some types of surfboard designs are actually accepted. I think that people have realised that you don't have to walk down the beach with a little narrow, rounded square thruster to sort of be cool or to be accepted. You can walk down the beach with a fish or a twin fin or a single fin and basically ride a board that you enjoy surfing. So I think it's a really great era of board design where you can actually ride a board that is suited to you and suited to the conditions that you actually surf. You don't feel that you've got to ride down the beach on a board with the best surfers in the world ride in surfing competitions.
Do you feel Shane and McCoy's experimentation along with your experimentation with the twin fin, do you think that contributed to the modern surfing style as we see it today, or do you believe the modern surfing style today has kind of progressed to the point where it's kind of the very conservative approach to it, more so when you guys were creating the style? You feel like it's
Well,
better?
I sort of think the styles of surfing these days are different. They're really influenced by the boards that people are riding. Everyone is riding around with square thrusters. You know, the lengths, the widths, and the thicknesses, and the concaves, and the styles of the board are very, very similar. And also, these days there's such a thing as sort of the perfect, you know, body size for a pro surfer. If you take a look at all the guys on the tour, they're all relatively the same size. In the years that I was competing, in the years that Shane was competing, you had a variety of different sizes and shapes in the surfers. And you also had a big variety of sort of different board designs. Like in those days, like all the shapers and surfers were, you know, trying to surge forward, trying to make a board that would surf, you know, tighten the pocket, faster and looser. Yeah, not a great deal different to what guys are actually doing today in terms of design. But I guess we've morphed to a design that everyone is fairly happy with and complacent with at the moment. Whereas back in the 70s and the 80s, you know, with all different types of surfers and different styles of surfing, there are a lot of different surfboards being written.
With the closing of Clark Foam in America, do you feel Australia will play another prominent role in the surfboard development over the next decade like they did in the early?
Well, I think the closing of Clark Foam has obviously presented a lot of problems for, you know, makers in sort of South America, America and Japan. But I guess in the long run it will probably be a good thing because I think the void will be filled with other blank manufacturers, and I think it will give, you know, surfboard manufacturers in the American market probably a little more choice of foams, and there'll be different foams available. Like in Australia, we're a very small country with a small sort of, I guess, surfboard production compared to America. We have three major, you know, foam distributors: Don Burf, Gary Bennett, and Nick Farrelly, plus some smaller guys as well. So we're in this very fortunate position in Australia where we've got, you know, a lot of foam to actually choose from. So I think it's really good for competition, and it's really good for the surfing industry if surfboard manufacturers and shapers have a choice. In the past in America, they haven't had a choice. Like Clark Foam has dominated the market, but I see, you know, problems for a few months to come. But once, you know, new foam makers are up and running, I think the board manufacturers in America will have a great choice of foam like we do in Australia.
So now foam is going to take more of a precedence instead of board design. It's more going to be what the boards are made out of in the future, possibly, as far as the difference.
Well, I think from what I've seen at this trade show in Florida, there's a lot of alternative materials around. There's a lot of epoxy. There's a lot of difference on the surfboard construction, and people are actually experimenting. And I think the closure of Clark Foam has probably given the alternate sort of construction materials a real kick in the bum and a real chance to actually get into the surfboard market. So like, I'm all for different types of board construction. You know, I don't believe that surfboard should just be made from, you know, the foam and fiberglass we've been using for years and years. So, you know, I think it's a really good time for surfboard design and surfboard construction at the moment. You know, people are experimenting with different shapes and, more importantly, experimenting with different, you know, foams and epoxies and different materials.
And the Pro Tour, will it have much of an effect on that, or do you feel that the Tour will have less of an effect on surfboard design than it did in your era?
Well, the Pro Tour drives surfboard design. It's been the way it was in the 70s and the 80s. You know, it's the way it is in 2005, 2006. It will continue to be that way because, you know, the best surfers in the world are on the ASB Pro Tour, and they're pushing the performance boundaries of high performance surfing, and they're pushing their equipment to the max. So I think a lot of the innovations, you know, and the design ideas will always come from the Pro Tour because that's where the best surfing in the world is actually happening.
Mark, I really appreciate that you spending time with us and answering a few questions. And thank you again, Mark Richards, surfing legend, surfboard builder.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
How'd that go?
Easy.